Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josephine Watson, the Commercial Projects Editor at iGaming Business, and I'm going to be moderating today's session. We are delighted to be hosting a webinar with Pure Storage today, looking at how iGaming's commercial success could be being hindered by data performance. Our speakers for today are Pure Storage's Anthony Liston, eGaming Sector Lead, and Patrick Smith, EMEA Field CTO. In this webinar, Anthony will kick off with a quick overview of why Pure came to survey the market and a discussion of the key findings of the research that was undertaken with independent researchers at Survata. Then, Patrick will share his thoughts based on how their experience working with e-gaming companies across Europe, on how the sector can best address its challenges to drive competition, as well as customer experience and profit. As always, there will be a Q&A session following the presentation, so if you have any questions as we go along, do submit them via the GoToWebinar portal and we'll address as many of them as possible in the allocated time. With that, I'm going to hand over to Anthony to kick us off for today. Thanks, guys.
Cool, fantastic. Thank you, Josie. Right, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us. Let's start by building this out. So thank you for joining us, guys. My name's Anthony Liston. I run the e-gaming sector for Pure Storage. I guess I'll start with, we all know the gaming sector is an incredibly interesting and dynamic market, both in terms of what is happening to it structurally, but also the regulatory challenges that it continues to face. And it's for these reasons that we decided to commission an independent technology survey actually that you'll hear about in a minute. So let's take a quick look at the e-gaming market as it currently stands, so that we can map against it the technology challenges and opportunities that our survey uncovered. But I'll start by stating the obvious. 2019 was a year of headwinds for the sector, with regulation hitting the high street hard. But it's not all bad news, right? In fact, looking at the positive, the industry is still experiencing a rich growth phase with projections that it will reach upwards of $100 billion within the next 5 years. And when we consider that retail is on the decline, this represents huge upside for any online business. In terms of revenue generation, businesses are looking for new gaming opportunities, and in some cases turning their attention to things like esports as a means to generate new revenue streams. And of course, it goes without saying that the growth we're seeing in new geographies, such as the US, is leading the way in terms of net new revenue generation. On the downside, however, regulation continues to impact revenues, with fixed odd betting terminal stake caps at the heart of the challenges on the high street. Add to that the fact that the industry continues to be the focus for unpopular public opinion only lumps more pressure on businesses to adopt adequate duty of care interventions as part of a more holistic customer experience. So as we continue to witness growth in online, much of this will only accelerate as we embrace more improved mobile services such as 5G, which in itself will only enhance customer expectations for a slicker customer experience. And so finally, as businesses continue to look for new product lines and market share, we continue to see consolidation within the industry, and the one that we're clearly all talking about this year being Flutter and the Stars Group. So with all these dynamics at play, what does this actually mean from a technology perspective, right? So, well, firstly, the growth in online plus any further M&A activity would naturally point to more intense competition, and therefore, to become more agile and be able to compete more effectively, businesses will need to place greater emphasis on bringing new platforms to market faster. Secondly, let's look at transaction performance for a second. Operators need to accelerate transaction performance so that they can maximize revenue potential. And on the flip side of that, though, consumers demand a more timely and user-friendly transaction experience so that any wins can be settled in real time, allowing for further play. Thirdly, as regulations continue to evolve, it's important that businesses embrace real-time analytics methodologies to satisfy compliance, but also ensuring that latency is not introduced will be key to delivering a frictionless customer experience. The same can be said for cashing out times, as delays often lead to user frustration. And lastly, and as with many other service industries, the competitive advantage is one on overall customer experience. In e-gaming, that is derived from a combination of game differentiation, device user experience, and transaction speed and settlement. Here, data plays an absolutely critical role, as does the infrastructure that stores and serves up that data. A few clicks on this one. So with everything that's going on in the market, we took our theories and tested them through primary research. And knowing how reliant e-gaming businesses are upon high performance data, we wanted to know exactly how well today's businesses are being served by data storage technologies, or are they somewhat being let down? We worked with the independent survey house Survata to sample the views from the industry and received responses from over 100 CEOs and technology leaders across the UK and the US, compiling their views on how well storage technologies are doing at supporting their business's commercial success. We're fortunate in receiving a set of responses that are well balanced from across the industry, and interestingly, most of them have been operating within the sector for 6 years or more. So we've seen and heard about what's happening in the market, and we have some theories about what this means for e-gaming businesses in terms of technology. So we decided to test our thoughts with this research and focus specifically on how does data storage impact businesses' ability to grow and compete? What are the cost and management implications of this? And what is the impact on innovation and getting new products to market quickly? So there we go. Too many clicks. So the results are in, and quite frankly, storage must do better. And by the way, the full suite of results are available in our report that you'll be able to download from the Pure Storage website soon. But we wanted to focus on some of the most significant aspects of the results, and then go on to demonstrate how those challenges can be overcome. In terms of performance, it was quite staggering actually to find that nearly half of the UK responders lose up to £85,000 every month due to a poor transaction experience. So what's happening here is that customers are dropping out, or transactions are failing in the US the figure is only higher, right? So clearly during any premier events such as top end sport team fixtures, the figure can be significantly higher still. In working with other dynamic businesses, for us, it's apparent that what we refer to as cold data, i.e. historical or log data that has to be stored for any number of years for compliance reasons, this can be incredibly valuable in terms of generating customer intelligence, application development, or even building CI/CD pipelines. From our survey in the UK, nearly 20% of respondents said they spend over £127,000 a year storing this data. But are they actually maximizing any of its value? Can they make it available wherever business critical development activities are taking place? And are they incurring significant time delays and cost when trying to access or extract this data from elsewhere? But I guess more worryingly, we saw that respondents are troubled by storage downtime, which of course means lost revenue, but also the detrimental impact on overall customer experience, something that no one can afford in this marketplace. Losing a customer quite often equates to a permanently churned customer if they move on and subsequently enjoy a faster, always-on experience from a competitor. So when it comes to downtime, it's happening for a number of reasons, including, of course, human error, inadequate provisions around availability, networking, and capacity. And as the market increasingly embraces a more hybrid or multi-cloud approach, we anticipate only further availability issues. So in terms of the overall customer experience, the ability to perform essential profile or anti-fraud checks in real time using technologies like AI and modern analytics is having a fairly major impact on the overall customer experience. Perhaps this is because legacy storage infrastructures struggle to meet the demands of these modern data applications. Well, whatever. Either way, it's having worrying implications, business implications that range from complaints at a minimum to abandonment and transaction latencies. And finally, in terms of setting the pace competitively and creating a suite of products that push the boundaries of innovation, data storage is impacting most organizations' ability to innovate. Only a tiny 4% of the respondents are able to spend over half of their time on innovation, and the rest is just keeping the lights on. Now, this isn't just a problem for the e-gaming sector, right? But there's clearly a problem here that can be addressed and easily fixed when you consider that there are technologies such as all-flash storage that have been designed around the premise of simplicity. So I guess it's fair to say that now is the time that e-gaming businesses need to redress the balance and have IT focus more on how they can help drive the business forward through innovation rather than just managing legacy storage. As I say, the complete review of the results is available in our report that you can download from the Pure Storage website. We'll put up the URL at the end of this presentation. So for this first part, thank you. And Josie, I guess back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anthony. So as you can see, guys, there's some fairly significant storage issues facing the industry. And the next part of our webinar is going to focus on how these challenges can be addressed by Patrick. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Patrick. Thank you.
Thanks, Josie. So I'm Patrick Smith, and I'm the field CTO for Pure Storage across EMEA. And I've been looking into the results from this industry research and wanted to talk about a few key ways that the gaming industry can adapt its approach to data in order to mitigate current financial and customer experience risks that Anthony touched on as a result of the survey. And these challenges are often as a result of inadequate storage technology. The result of what I talk about should be a view on how you can create a unique storage infrastructure that works for your businesses and technology strategies. And that might be able to create and introduce a hybrid cloud environment and help ensure that you're best positioned to take advantage of the boom in the e-gaming industry that we've already touched on. So as we look at the world that we're now facing with data, digital really does run on data. Across industries, we see some real commonalities that people are focusing their tech investment on. And the top 6 are almost without doubt common. And we see business analytics, cybersecurity, the adoption of the public cloud, application modernization with a move to DevOps to provide greater agility, a focus on investing in better customer experience and leveraging AI and machine learning to transform businesses. And clearly from what our respondents tell us, it feels like these trends are highly relevant to the e-gaming industry, especially as you consider the increased move to digital services. As you can imagine, all of these areas are highly dependent on data, and the ROI of these efforts is heavily influenced by the underlying infrastructure that hosts that data. Some of the key attributes that customers are looking for is performance, how quickly data is accessed to deliver results, agility in terms of how the platform can run new applications and delivering fast time to market for those applications, especially in the competitive environment that it is e-gaming. Cost efficiency and how much data you can afford to store, especially as we look at a lot of those regulatory requirements, and how that data can improve decision making. And finally, and probably most importantly, reliability. Access to information consistently and reliably, especially in an online world, is key to customer experience and securing the customer for the long term. So, if we look at some of the challenges, now that we've identified the key investments driving digital transformation, let's look at what is holding IT leaders back from actually executing on them. So what we hear from leaders across the world is that legacy infrastructures are a roadblock. The infrastructures weren't designed for a digital age. They're actually designed simply to hold data and not provide the insight into that data that today's business demands. The reality is that the majority of customers have a fragmented, siloed infrastructure that inhibits digital transformation. Their teams are spending all of their time making sure that these rigid architectures keep running, rather than spending their time focused on innovation and extracting value from data. We believe that fragmented silos undermine the ability to deliver a slick, personalized customer experience and impact businesses' ability to deliver rapid development of new games. Expensive architectures with limited ability to scale and which are expensive to run have an impact on the cost of storing essential cold data. This has an impact on the bottom line. And because there's an implicit need to squeeze value from current investments, these legacy infrastructures could slow cloud adoption with the inherent agility and scale benefits that using a cloud paradigm delivers. Making legacy systems work for your business going forward can result in downtime as they struggle to cope with highly data-intensive applications such as machine learning, and associated effect could be slower transactions and considerable human resource overhead running the systems. Legacy systems tend to be very support intensive and carry massive cost overhead as a result. Taking away budget that could be used to improve both customer experience and innovation in gaming. Storage technologies, whether legacy or not, that are rigid and not easy to upgrade, dent agility. They hold businesses back. What's required by e-gaming, along with other hyper-competitive industries, is easy access to storage innovation, preferably delivered in a way that won't require planning, internal resources, or massive rip and replace approaches. Pure's belief is that now is the time to invest in a modern data experience that enables organizations to innovate and drive value from their data. The modern data experience is based upon 4 key pillars. It's our commitment to innovation and leadership around these 4 ideals. Fast matters, cloud anywhere, simple is smart, and a subscription to innovation. So let's take a look at each of them. So firstly, fast matters, and it's interesting. A lot of vendors think that fast and faster technology just happens by adding new technology like Flash to a legacy architecture, and we simply don't believe that's true. Delivering truly groundbreaking performance and delivering fast capabilities to customers can only happen when you design in technology from the ground up for specific outcomes. At Pure, we think about faster applications, faster analytics and DevOps, and then pick the right technologies to deliver on that promise. Faster applications that improve customer experience, such as Navitus, a large transaction processing firm who dropped processing times by hundredths of a second, which makes a big difference when you're processing hundreds of thousands of transactions a day. New technologies that enable this kind of transformation include storage class memory that can provide differentiated application performance. And when you combine that with really fast connectivity, for instance, using NVMe over Fabric, you can really drive down latency into the low hundreds of microseconds that provide early adopters with a clear differentiated advantage. Faster analytics for faster insight and better decisions is another great example where fast makes a difference. One of Pure's customers is the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, and they use technology to deliver faster outcome and insight both during a race, but also make better decisions when tuning their car throughout the season, supporting thousands of changes. Faster delivery of software and services to market is what every company is seeking to drive. And especially in the e-gaming world, agility and bringing faster customer differentiated games to market is key. The second pillar of the modern data experience is cloud everywhere. And what we're seeing across all industries, but especially e-gaming, is the move to the true hybrid and multi-cloud, being able to use the right cloud environment for the right business services to deliver competitive advantage. A modern infrastructure must provide capabilities to make the most of both the public cloud and on-prem cloud. This is true both in terms of the purchasing model, where more and more organizations are looking for cloud-like services where they can pay for what they use, but when they don't need to use it, they reduce their cost base. The hybrid cloud is all about being able to deliver across the private cloud and the public cloud, delivering a true hybrid or multi-cloud solution, supporting containerized workloads in both as customers and enterprises look to transform their application base to a more agile environment. The hybrid cloud enables seamless data mobility, both for data and to support business processes, ensuring that the data exists wherever it's required, when it's required. And finally, in the world of cloud everywhere, fast global recovery, using the cloud to support recovery efforts should disaster strike, and to provide better and lower cost backup requirements to support regulatory demands on organizations. The third area of Pure's differentiation is simply smart. And this is all about being able to provide simple capabilities to deliver increased business value. Simple and secure cloud-based management, where the goal is to enable everyone in the organization to manage storage without being experts, to provide predictive support so that organizations don't have to troubleshoot simple storage issues, where we can avoid those issues in the first place by providing constant monitoring of the environment and fingerprinting of issues so we can prevent an issue becoming an outage. And finally, AI-based optimization, where workloads can be optimized based on patterns and machine learning insight, so that tools can forecast growth requirements to allow for budgetary planning and data center planning ahead of time, and to be able to plan and forecast workloads so that you can get an insight into how the trends in the business are driving the requirements for the underlying infrastructure and the storage infrastructure. And finally, the last pillar, a subscription to innovation. Most vendors see infrastructure as a point-in-time purchase. You buy it, and they expect you to run that infrastructure a period of time before having to rebuy it, go through a painful migration, and then rinse and repeat on a regular 3 or 4 year depreciation window. It leads to lots of challenges. Cost, because you're constantly having to rebuy the underlying infrastructure, and inefficiency, because you have to go through those migrations on a regular basis that introduce cost and risk to your operational environment. Modernizing storage without downtime is really key. As we talked about, the customer experience and customer loyalty is based on an always-on infrastructure. So being able to modernize whilst maintaining service is key. Ending the 3-year merry-go-round of those depreciation cycles is important. And so being able to move to a without actually having to do that rip and replace is something that Pure Storage offers through what we call an evergreen model that keeps your platform up to date and actually improves over time, rather than getting worse and becoming a legacy over time. And paying for the storage you need when you need it, having an environment that is, but also performance when you need it, without a rip and replace view of that infrastructure, is truly transformational. So then if we look at the solutions that this modern data experience drives, there are several key initiatives where we find customers of Pure are looking to drive their business forward. So the first is tier 1 applications. Organizations accelerate workloads for faster business outcomes and superior customer experiences, all the while simplifying operational challenges like complex IT management, rigid deployment strategies that don't easily integrate with the cloud, and legacy purchasing methods that require big. The second key area is that world of real-time analytics and AI. And the world of AI is really incredible pace. It's no longer the science fiction that we see in movies. AI is a reality in pretty much every industry, whether that's finance, telco, retail, or the world of e-gaming, where leaders are focused on leveraging a variety of data sources such as log data, customer data, and more to make faster and more insightful business decisions and exploit machine learning to support business needs and increasingly competitive differentiation. It's not a case of, shall I use machine learning to transform my business? It's a case of having to use it to stay competitive. The world of multi-cloud, as we've talked about, where organizations are building next generation infrastructures that give them the agility to move business and data processes between public clouds and on-prem facilities based on several criteria. That could be cost, capability, performance, or increasingly compliance requirements, which are always changing. And so having the flexibility to move those workloads around those different environments is really important and will grow more important over time. And finally, modern data protection, where leaders are rethinking their approach to safeguarding information and looking at how to better eliminate downtime and risk to business operations through more robust strategies, with a focus on faster restore times to get the business online as quickly as possible when it matters. And so in closing, it really is true that digital runs on data, and that the modern data experience, where fast matters, the cloud is everywhere, and simple is smart, all wrapped up with a subscription to innovation, is key to competitive business advantage. And now I'll pass back to Josie for Q&A.
Fantastic, Patrick. Thank you so much for that, and to both of you for a fantastic presentation overall. We now have some time to address some questions from the audience. So to our listeners, please do send through any questions you may have, and we'll go through as many as possible in the allocated time. Also, as I'm aware, we'll have questions come through about it. As Anthony said at the beginning, you can download a copy of the full research findings within the next few weeks from the e-gaming page on the Pure Storage website. So to kick us off, actually, something we were sort of talking about before we launched today was, Anthony, would you be able to talk through any of the use cases of your services from recent years?
Yeah, definitely. So can you hear me all right?
Perfectly.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks, Josie. So I think, you know, if we look at storage, right? So you know, traditionally and historically, you know, this has all been around and born out of a disk-based infrastructure, which is where it was, right, 5, 6, 7 years ago. There are still many organizations that are still utilizing that technology to underpin, you know, the storage infrastructure in their businesses. You know, if you go on our website, there's a huge amount of case studies, one of which is Paddy Power Betfair. Those guys embraced all-flash storage. They were one of the early adopters for all-flash. Their entire business is now underpinned by all-flash, and you know, as Patrick alluded to, there are inherent benefits to flash, apart from the fact it's really, really fast, right? And it's a lot faster than a spinning disk. But you know, some of the other things that we have, you know, built our organization around flash in terms of simplicity, you know, and ease of use, are important to us, and as they are to our customers as well, because you know, it addresses those considerations around performance. You know, it's pretty much the fastest thing out there in terms of being able to serve up and access data. You know, it's incredibly, or can be incredibly simple to manage. You know, and there are a lot of considerations to think about when you think about your the end user experience. And you know, what we hear from our customers is, excuse me, you know, there is this, and as a user myself, there is a fine balance between the the heat of the moment and wanting to be able to transact and engage with an operator, and then not getting that experience, and then just quite simply moving to somebody else. And because one of the important things of any of the operators is being able to sort of onboard customers quickly, you know, it's a fine line, right? So, you know, if you're not able to deliver a fast, always on experience from an end user perspective, then you're quite simply going to lose customers and lose revenue. So, and all of that is underpinned by technology that is super fast, super simple, and you know, is able to be deployed in a on-premise or multi-cloud kind of environment. So, you know, I think this is not just specific to the e-gaming sector, but it is really tangible with this sector. You know, speed matters, to Patrick's point. So, you know, things like all-flash storage is a way to meet that that business objective.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And I think something we discussed before, we did an interview a couple of weeks ago, was about the volume of data and how that's growing, and how in this industry especially, that there's a lot of questions around data storage and sort of how much they need, what's needed, how long for. What sort of unique challenges is this presenting, and how are you addressing the specific iGaming challenges to do with the volume of data?
So, yeah, I mean, you hit on a fairly topical point there, Josie, because, you know, some fairly recent announcements around, you know, storing data and for how long do you need to store that data, and actually, what do you need to store? So we talked to some of our customers, and they're storing every single transaction for many years, down to, you know, user mouse clicks, because they don't really know if they have to. They just do it because they think they probably have to. So I think that's going to become clearer. I think the point is, though, is that all of the businesses that we work with have huge amounts of data that they have stored and recorded and logged over the years, and it sits on technology and it grows exponentially. I think the important and interesting thing is that, okay, whilst everybody works out what they need to do with that or how long they need to keep it, why not try and find out how you can actually derive some value from it? So, you know, and Patrick touched on this as well. So using sort of AI and machine learning technologies to help better understand what your customer looks like, or you know, and know what your customer looks like, opening up other revenue opportunities that might exist therein. And likewise, you know, from a real-time perspective, and we touched on this earlier, and you know, using those capabilities to tackle things like fraud, for example, is another aspect to that.
Excellent, thank you so much. I guess this is more of a personal question, but would you say there was anything in a survey for either of you, and perhaps Anthony can start this, that really surprised you, whether it's to do with this industry in particular, or whether it's reflective in general of sort of the complications around data performance that global industries are facing? Perhaps Anthony, if you kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there were too many surprises in the survey response, Josie. So you know, I've been kicking around the block for long enough to see that you know, businesses struggle and are challenged with the amount of time and resource they spend on just keeping the lights on. So, you know, I've seen across the years that, you know, 80% of the IT budget is dedicated to just keeping the lights on, and a very small amount is reserved for actually innovation or driving the business forward. And I think, you know, from our perspective, we, you know, and Patrick touched on this as well, around the whole sort of premise of simplicity. So we fundamentally are passionate about the importance of storage and data. It's the new oil, if you like, data. But it's being able to present that in a way that means that, you know, you don't need an army of storage admins to manage your data. You need to have a platform that is, you know, regardless of the size, can be managed by a much smaller than traditionally number of individuals, and therefore freeing up resources to focus on activities that are going to fundamentally drive the business forward and generate new revenue and so you know, from my own experience, and it's not just within, you know, gaming, but outside of that, you know, none of the numbers were a massive surprise. What was a surprise was that, given that, you know, we have conducted this survey fairly recently, that, you know, those percentages between keeping the lights on versus innovation haven't really declined that much. And I think, you know, that's one of the things that the industry needs to redress.
Patrick, would you add anything to that about just any surprises or, you know, big takeaways you felt from the survey that we haven't perhaps covered?
Yeah, I think one of the big areas is the fact that we're seeing e-gaming really being based on organizations becoming technology companies and focused entirely on data. And so it means that those organizations really need to transition to all the things we've talked about in terms of becoming agile, bringing new product to market quickly, remaining out of the competition, but basing it all on maximizing the value of their data. And to do that, they really need to be able to transform and change the underlying platforms that they use, because, as Anthony said, you know, it's been talked about, data is the new oil for some time, but for the market that we're talking about here, it really is true. These are now becoming data companies, that is the most precious asset they have, together with the customer experience and the relationship with the customer, and it's all based on the technology infrastructure they have. Unless they really do transform the technology infrastructure to a simple, always-on environment, then they're going to be at a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly visible with how sort of the big winners are currently using data versus perhaps how others are not. That actually sort of leads on to a question that someone else has sent in about sort of data strategy in general. I know you guys aren't really sort of specialized in data strategy, rather, you know, the storage side of things, but how would you say, you know, when someone comes to you and asks about sort of building their data strategy and building storage into that and building performance into that and considerations about these things, what would be your sort of top advice that you'd give an operator in iGaming? Patrick, this might be one more for you, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's data strategy is one of the big challenges that so many organizations across the board are faced with, especially as you look at the changing face of the technology landscape, as we talked about, with on-prem infrastructure, cloud-based infrastructure. So firstly, the first thing that a lot of organizations have a challenge with is getting their arms around their data and what data they have. And so a lot of organizations start out by first trying to understand the data landscape they've got, and then actually categorizing it to understand, you know, what is sensitive data, what the sensitivity of the data might be, what constraints they might have around where they can host that data, how they can use it, what data they can share, what data they can't share. And really then it starts to build up a picture of how you make use of the data, what data is valuable for what particular business challenges you have. And then, you know, the last step becomes how you host that data. What data needs to be on a performant platform to support, for instance, AI and machining type insight? What data needs to be on a low latency platform to support that very rapid transaction processing type environments? And what data needs to sit on that cold storage that we saw from the survey provides, you know, very high cost base that eats into people's budgets for that archival and regulatory requirements. So I think it's a multi-step process that starts off with understanding your data, understanding what you want to do with it, and then based on that, understanding where you want to keep it.
Excellent. Would you add anything to that, Anthony, or has Patrick sort of summarized everything quite nicely there?
Patrick is far more eloquent at describing that than I am, Josie, so nothing more to add on that.
I'll pass it back over. I think one of the things that sort of generally as well comes up quite a lot with these things, obviously we did touch on it in the presentation as well, is how it's going to enable future technologies, you know, how certain technologies aren't possible without a strong data strategy and a strong data availability. When it comes to sort of the more imminent things, what do you think that the risk is if people don't implement proper data performance, data storage strategies in the next couple of years? What are they going to lose? What can't they do if they don't have that in place, in your opinions?
So I think well, customers, quite frankly, in my view, and we kind of sort of touched on that earlier in terms of, you know, with this market, yeah, and it's so highly competitive, and has been a user in the past that has not had a particularly good user experience with one particular operator's app. You know, in the heat of the moment, I you know, like the market they will just quite simply move to somebody else who can give you that that access. So, you know, I think you know, the next sort of couple of years, as we see the sort of market kind of evolve, you know, there's clearly a lot of mega mergers going on at the moment with, you know, what we saw a couple of years ago with, you know, GBC and Ladbrokes Coral, what we then saw with Stars Group and Skybet, and then, you know, what we're potentially going to see this year with, you know, Flutter and the Stars Group. So, you know, competition is still, you know, a big factor in this, and you know, any organization that is not able to deliver, you know, that slick, super fast, super easy customer experience is going to suffer from that. So, you know, and what we've seen and what we understand from our perspective is that, you know, the underlying infrastructure, which has inherently been quite complex and quite siloed, you know, and is now evolving into, you know, a more simpler, more software-defined kind of infrastructure, will deliver those kind of requirements that these businesses that need. And you know, and anybody that's not prepared to get on the bus is going to suffer from that. So, and I think the other thing is, and Patrick, I'll let you touch on this as well, but you know, we're clearly in a world of clouds. Okay, so, and I talk about sort of you know, multi-clouds, and that's not just sort of on-premise, but it's the variety of clouds that are available, you know, within the public cloud sort of environment, and the desire that businesses have to, quite frankly, to have choice. Okay, so they don't want to quite naturally want to be forced into putting data in one particular area, right? So they want access to all of the features that the public cloud will offer, which is, you know, the agility, the flexibility, the durability, but they also want the features perhaps that on-premise infrastructures will deliver in terms of you know, availability and access to you know, enterprise features. So, you know, they want both. They want the best of both worlds, and quite rightly, they should have access to both of those. So it's you know, understanding what that is and being able to provide access to that as well, which is important, I think.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Anthony. That's about all we've got time for today, actually, guys. But thank you so much for sending in your questions to our audience. And thank you very much to Patrick and Anthony for addressing them. To our listeners, if you do have any further questions, you can obviously contact us directly at info@igamingbusiness.com, or wait for your post-webinar email, which will give you some more information about how to get in touch with Pure Storage, or indeed how to download the research findings. Unfortunately, like I say, that's all we've got time for, but again, thank you, Anthony and Patrick, for joining us. Today's webinar has been recorded, as always, and will be available to listen to on demand shortly, and you can rewatch it and share with your colleagues. Otherwise, we'll see you all soon.
Thanks all. I hope it's been useful. Bye for now.